I didn't get rich doing anything exciting. No crypto that 10x'd. No side hustle that blew up. No stock I got in early on. I got rich doing 12 things so boring I used to be embarrassed to admit them out loud. Everyone thinks wealth looks like a leap. Quit the job, catch the hot stock, find the secret nobody else knows. But here's the uncomfortable part. Every wealthy person I've studied who actually kept the money didn't get there with one big move. They got there with a short list of unglamorous habits, repeated for years, while everyone else was chasing the exciting version of getting rich. I went back through the last decade of my own finances and pulled out every single habit that actually moved my net worth, and cut the ones that just felt productive but didn't. 12 made the list. Number 7 is the one almost nobody actually does, and it's the one that changed the most. If you've ever felt behind, like everyone else found some shortcut you missed, sit with this. They didn't find a shortcut. They just kept doing the boring thing after you stopped. 2 people move onto the same street the same year. Same starting salary, $58,000. Jordan leases a BMW 3 Series the week the signing bonus lands, orders DoorDash 4 nights a week, and has a crypto app open more often than a banking app. Down the street, the other person, we'll call her Mara, drives a 2014 Civic she bought used, cooks the same 5 dinners on rotation, and hasn't looked at her portfolio balance in 6 months. Here's the thesis, and I'm not going to make you wait for it. 10 years later, Jordan has $4,200 in savings and a car that's worth less than what's owed on it. Mara has a paid-off car, a fully funded emergency fund, and a portfolio worth over $310,000. Nobody on that street would have guessed which one was actually getting rich. That's the whole point of what's coming. The 3 ideas that hold this list together. Before the habits themselves, 3 names for things you'll see over and over. The invisible raise. A money move that functions exactly like a raise, except your boss never signed off on it, and nobody at work knows it happened. The boredom tax. The price paid quietly for choosing the exciting version of a money decision over the boring one. It rarely shows up as a single bill. It shows up 10 years later as a missing zero. The compounding ordinary. The idea that a boring action repeated for a decade isn't boring anymore. It's just compounding wearing a disguise. Keep those 3 in your head. They're going to keep showing back up. 1. Pay yourself first. Automate it before you see the number. The claim is almost a cliché at this point, which is exactly why most people don't actually do it. The moment your paycheck lands, a fixed percentage should leave before you ever see the balance. Here's the math that makes it non-negotiable. On a $58,000 salary, moving just 10% automatically, $483 a month, into an index fund earning a historical 7% average annual return turns into roughly $83,000 after 10 years, and it does that without a single willpower decision along the way. Vanguard's own research on automatic enrollment plans has found that participants in plans with automatic contribution features save at meaningfully higher and more consistent rates than those who have to opt in manually every time. The habit isn't the saving. It's removing the moment where you'd have to choose to save. Jordan, from the opening scene, set up autopay for his BMW lease the same week he got his signing bonus. He never once set up an automatic transfer to a brokerage account. Same paycheck. 2 automations. Only one of them was pointed at his future. This is the invisible raise in its purest form. Money moving in a direction you chose once, that keeps choosing itself every month whether you're paying attention or not. And it hands off directly into the next habit, because automating the saving means almost nothing if the vehicle you're driving is quietly eating the raise you just gave yourself. 2. Keep the car until it's boring, then keep driving it anyway. A car payment is the single largest recurring, invisible bill in most household budgets, and it's the one people extend the longest without questioning. The average new car payment in the U.S. sits well above $700 a month once you include a modern loan term. Keep that payment running continuously, trading in every 4 to 5 years for a new one, for a decade, and you've moved close to $84,000 through that single line item. Drive a car until it's paid off, then keep driving it 3, 4, 5 more years, and that same $700 a month goes to your brokerage account instead of a finance company. Experienced state of the automotive finance market data has repeatedly shown the average new car loan stretching close to 70 months, meaning a huge share of drivers are still paying for a car that's already lost a third of its value. Curtis, a guy I know from an old job, has driven the same Corolla since 2016. Coworkers used to rib him about it during the years everyone else was leasing something newer. He's not driving it because he can't afford something nicer. He's driving it because the $650 a month it isn't costing him is the exact reason his 401k balance is the one people ask him about now, not the car. That's the boredom tax working in reverse. The boring car is the one that doesn't tax you. Which leads straight into the next habit, because the same math that applies to a car applies to almost everything. You pay for on repeat. 3. Negotiate every recurring bill, once a year, on a calendar reminder. The claim, once a year, every subscription and recurring service bill gets a phone call or a chat message asking for a better rate, insurance, internet, phone, streaming bundles, all of it. The math is unglamorous but real. Shaving even $40 a month off a car insurance premium and $25 off an internet bill is $780 a year, recovered from maybe 40 minutes of actual effort. Redirected into an index fund for a decade at 7%. That's over $11,000, for a habit that costs less time per year than a single sitcom episode. Insurance companies rely on what the industry itself calls price optimization, pricing loyal, non-shopping customers higher over time because the data shows they're unlikely to leave. That's not a conspiracy theory, it's a documented pricing practice regulators in several states have investigated. The bill doesn't go up because your risk went up. It goes up because you didn't ask. Mara does this every January, the same week she does her taxes. One call to her insurer, one to her internet provider. Total time, about 35 minutes. Total annual savings, most years, somewhere between $500 and $900. This is the invisible raise again, same mechanism as automating your savings, just aimed at spending instead of saving. And it rehooks directly into the next habit, because the biggest recurring bill most people never think to renegotiate isn't a bill at all. It's what they eat. 4. Cook the same 5 meals on rotation, on purpose. The claim, pick 5 dinners you actually like, buy the ingredients on a set schedule, and stop treating "what should we eat?" as a daily decision. The average cost of a DoorDash-style delivery order lands around $30 to $35 once fees and tips are included, versus roughly $6 to $8 per serving to cook the same meal at home. 4 delivery dinners a week instead of home-cooked ones is a gap of close to $500 a month, $6,000 a year, every year, indefinitely. The USDA's own food cost estimates consistently show a thrifty, home-cooked meal plan running a fraction of the cost of restaurant or delivery equivalents for a comparable calorie and nutrition profile. Jordan orders in 4 to 5 nights a week. It's part of why the crypto app stays open more than the banking app. There's rarely a large balance in the banking app worth checking. Mara's rotation is 5 meals she's made so many times she doesn't need a recipe anymore. Neither person would call their dinner life exciting. Only one of them is quietly banking $500 a month because of it. That closes out the first 4 habits, the ones that decide where money flows before it even reaches a decision point. The next 4 are about what happens to the money once it's already moving. 5. Get the full employer 401k match before anything else touches your paycheck. The claim, before an extra dollar goes anywhere else, savings account, brokerage, anything, enough goes into the 401k to capture 100% of the employer match. A common match structure is 50% up to 6% of salary. On a $58,000 salary, that's $1,740 a year in free money for contributing $3,480 yourself, an instant, guaranteed 50% return before the market does anything at all. No investment anywhere else offers that. Vanguard's How America Saves report has found year after year that a meaningful share of eligible employees still leave part or all of their employer match unclaimed, Money that was already theirs, simply never collected. Priya, a co-worker of Mara's, didn't enroll for her first 8 months at a new job because the onboarding paperwork felt overwhelming. That's 8 months of guaranteed 50% returns that are gone permanently. They don't get retroactively credited once you finally sign up. This is the cleanest example of the invisible raise on the whole list. It's a raise your employer already agreed to give you, sitting unclaimed in a form you have to actively opt into. 6. Automate the investing, then stop checking the app. The claim: once money is moving into low-cost index funds automatically, the single highest value action is closing the app and not opening it again except on a set schedule. Fidelity has published internal analysis on which account holders had the best returns over long stretches, and one widely cited version of that finding pointed to accounts that had been essentially forgotten, inactive, untouched, outperforming actively managed ones, largely because nobody panic sold during a downturn. Checking a portfolio daily doesn't just waste time. Behavioral finance research, notably work associated with Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman on loss aversion, has found that losses register roughly twice as emotionally intense as equivalent gains, which is exactly the wiring that pushes people to sell low during a dip they'd never have noticed if they just left the account alone. Mara checks her portfolio twice a year. Jordan checked his crypto wallet an average of several times a day during the one stretch he had money in it, and sold at a loss during the first serious downturn, the same week Mara's account, which she wasn't watching, recovered on its own. This one rehooks hard into the next habit, because don't check the app only works if there's a different number you're checking instead. 7. Track net worth quarterly, not your bank balance daily. Here's the one almost nobody does, and it's the one that changed the most for me. The claim: once every 3 months, on a calendar reminder, every asset and every debt gets added up into one single number, and that number, not the checking account balance, becomes the only score that matters. A daily bank balance is noisy. It goes up on payday and down on rent day and tells you almost nothing about whether you're actually building wealth. Net worth strips that noise out. Someone with $40,000 in the bank and $60,000 in credit card and car debt has a net worth of negative $20,000, a number a daily balance check would never reveal. Financial planning research consistently finds that the households who build the most wealth over time aren't the ones with the highest income. They're the ones who can accurately state their net worth within a reasonable margin when asked. Simply tracking the number changes behavior around it. The same effect food diaries have on eating habits. Mara keeps a single spreadsheet cell that gets updated on the 1st of January, April, July, and October. She's watched it go from negative $8,000 in her first year out of college to over $310,000 now. Jordan, when asked, genuinely didn't know whether his net worth was positive or negative, because the only number he ever looked at was his checking account balance the morning rent was due. Mid-roll CTA sits here, right after this point, riding the emotional weight of the one almost nobody does. That was teased in the hook. If tracking one number every 3 months sounds like the kind of boring that actually works for you, that's exactly the kind of habit this channel is built around. Subscribe if you want the rest of them. 8. Use the 30-day rule on anything over $100. The claim: any non-essential purchase over $100 gets written down and revisited in 30 days, not blocked, just delayed. The math on this one is behavioral, not compounding, but the effect is the same direction. Studies on cooling off purchase delays, including research cited by consumer behavior economists, have found that a meaningful share of delayed discretionary purchases are never made at all once the initial impulse fades, with the money simply staying in the account instead. Jordan bought a $2,400 espresso machine the week he saw it trending online. It's been used 4 times. Mara wanted the same machine, wrote it in a notes app, and 30 days later genuinely couldn't remember why she'd wanted it that badly. This one rehooks into the final act, because the 30-day rule only works as a filter if the default assumption underneath your spending is already tilted toward boring, not exciting, which is exactly what the next 4 habits are about. 9. Make generic the default, not the exception. The claim: For anything where the store brand and name brand are functionally the same product, medication, pantry staples, basic toiletries, generic is the default choice, not something you settle for when money's tight. Consumer Reports testing has repeatedly found that store-brand versions of common over-the-counter medications and pantry staples are chemically identical or nutritionally equivalent to their name-brand counterparts in a large share of tested categories, often manufactured in the same facilities. A household spending $150 a week on groceries that shifts even 30% of that toward generic equivalents saves roughly $2,300 a year. Invested for a decade at 7%, that's over $33,000, for a habit that changes literally nothing about what's on the plate. Mara doesn't think about this one anymore. It's just the default reach on the shelf. Jordan associates name brands with the identity he wants, which is exactly the boredom tax showing up as a grocery bill instead of a bank statement. 10. Use credit cards for the rewards, and pay the full statement, every time, automatically. The claim. Credit cards aren't the enemy. Carried balances are. Rewards cards used for normal spending and paid in full automatically every month turn everyday purchases into free money, with zero downside. A card earning 2% cash back on $2,500 a month in normal spending, groceries, gas, bills, is $600 a year, collected for doing nothing differently except which piece of plastic gets tapped. The moment a balance carries, the average credit card APR, which has sat above 20% in recent years per Federal Reserve consumer credit data, erases that entire benefit and then some within a single missed payment cycle. Mara has autopay set to full statement balance, not minimum payment, a setting most cards default away from unless you change it. Jordan carried a balance on his card for most of a year after the espresso machine purchase, paying more in interest than the cash back on his entire year of spending. Same tool, opposite outcome, entirely decided by one setting most people never bother to check. 11. Let every raise go somewhere boring before it touches your lifestyle. The claim, when a raise or bonus lands, a fixed share of it, half is a common rule of thumb, gets redirected into savings or investing before spending habits adjust to the new number. This is the mechanism behind what's often called lifestyle creep, income rising while savings rate stays flat or shrinks, because spending expands to fill whatever room the new number creates. A person who banks half of every raise for a decade, instead of letting their spending rise to match their full income, ends up with a materially larger net worth than someone earning the same total income who spent every raise as it came. Jordan's signing bonus went to a lease down payment the same week it landed. Mara's most recent raise, a $4,000 annual increase, has half of it rerouted automatically into her brokerage account before it ever reaches her checking account, meaning her spending literally never got a chance to notice the raise happened. This is the invisible raise at its most literal, a raise that stays invisible to your day-to-day spending on purpose, so it can compound instead of evaporate. 12. Read your own statements, line by line, once a month. The claim, once a month, every account, checking, credit card, brokerage, gets scrolled through line by line, not just glanced at for the total. This is the least exciting habit on the entire list, and it's the one that makes every other habit on this list possible, because you can't automate, negotiate, or redirect money you're not actually looking at. A forgotten subscription running $14.99 a month for a service canceled 2 years ago is invisible to a balance check and obvious the moment someone actually reads the line items. A widely cited internal review by a major bank on unused recurring subscriptions found that a large share of account holders were paying for at least one subscription they had entirely forgotten they still had, often for over a year before it was caught. Mara does this on the same day she updates her net worth spreadsheet. It's the reason she caught a $12.99 charge from a trial she forgot to cancel, small on its own, but the same habit that caught it is the habit that would catch something bigger. Here's what wealth actually turns out to mean. After all 12 of these, it isn't a single decision. It's the compounding of 100 small, unremarkable ones, the compounding ordinary, repeated long enough that they stop looking like choices and start looking like who you are. Go back to that street. Jordan and Mara moved in the same year, same salary, same starting line. Nobody driving past could have told you which one was getting rich, because rich, in the moment, doesn't look like anything. It looks like a boring car in a driveway and a spreadsheet nobody else has seen. You can read that street now, can't you? If you want the version of this that's more foundational. The actual order of operations for where your first dollar should go before any of these 12 habits even apply, that's a video I've already made, and it's the natural next step from here. One question for the comments: which one of these 12 are you already doing without realizing it, and which one is the one you've been avoiding? I read every comment on these videos, and this list came directly out of 10 years of my own numbers, not a theory. This isn't financial advice. It's just what actually moved the number for me. Jordan's signing bonus went to a lease down payment the same week it landed. Mara's most recent raise, a $4,000 annual increase, has half of it rerouted automatically into her brokerage account before it ever reaches her checking account, meaning her spending literally never got a chance to notice the raise happened. This is the invisible raise at its most literal, a raise that stays invisible to your day-to-day spending on purpose, so it can compound instead of evaporate. 12. Read your own statements, line by line, once a month. The claim, once a month, every account, checking, credit card, brokerage, gets scrolled through line by line, not just glanced at for the total. This is the least exciting habit on the entire list, and it's the one that makes every other habit on this list possible, because you can't automate, negotiate, or redirect money you're not actually looking at. A forgotten subscription running $14.99 a month for a service canceled 2 years ago is invisible to a balanced check and obvious the moment someone actually reads the line items. A widely cited internal review by a major bank on unused recurring subscriptions found that a large share of account holders were paying for at least one subscription they had entirely forgotten they still had, often for over a year before it was caught. Mara does this on the same day she updates her net worth spreadsheet. It's the reason she caught a $12.99 charge from a trial she forgot to cancel, small on its own, but the same habit that caught it is the habit that would catch something bigger. Here's what wealth actually turns out to mean. After all 12 of these, it isn't a single decision. It's the compounding of 100 small, unremarkable ones, the compounding ordinary, repeated long enough that they stop looking like choices and start looking like who you are. Go back to that street. Jordan and Mara moved in the same year, same salary, same starting line. Nobody driving past could have told you which one was getting rich, because rich, in the moment, doesn't look like anything. It looks like a boring car in a driveway and a spreadsheet nobody else has seen. You can read that street now, can't you? If you want the version of this that's more foundational. The actual order of operations for where your first dollar should go before any of these 12 habits even apply, that's a video I've already made, and it's the natural next step from here. One question for the comments: which one of these 12 are you already doing without realizing it, and which one is the one you've been avoiding? I read every comment on these videos, and this list came directly out of 10 years of my own numbers, not a theory. This isn't financial advice. It's just what actually moved the number for me.